Hey, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Liz, business coach for women of color. And today I want to have a candid conversation with you about what to do when you find so much conflicting information out there online about how to succeed in your business, and you don't know which information you should actually follow, whose advice you should take. What do you do? Let's have a candid conversation about that. And I think what needs to be addressed is the fact that there's no such thing as perfect information or perfect guidance. I think we need to start there because in school, right, growing up, we've been conditioned to assume that our teachers, the people who want to educate us on a particular topic, the people who have this expertise, we are conditioned to assume that their knowledge, their logic is undeniable, right? We're conditioned to assume that the information they have and how they have processed it, that is the end all be all. In the process of that, it takes away our personal power. And this can be complex and nuanced, right? Because yes, there are 100% going to be people who know more than you on a particular topic. If you want to be an open heart surgeon, then you're going to have to go to school to learn how to do that. You can't just start opening up bodies and expect to be healing people. That's not how that works, right? But in most things that are not open heart surgery, that are not learning that 2 + 2 = 4, in most other things, it's not quite so clear cut. It's not quite so black and white. And what ends up happening is that you just kind of follow the educator, the person who you're looking to for expertise, the person with the knowledge. You follow them blindly. You follow them blindly. You accept everything that you say that they say at face value. And in fact, when you grow up in school, the way to get ahead in the school system is really to just mimic what it is that you're being taught and then be able to test well on it. I mean, that's the reason why we have people who, for instance, excel in school, get straight A's, not so much because they thoroughly understand the information, but they know how to work the system, the education system, of how to get the scores and the numbers you need to get ahead. And then as soon as they finish with those lessons and those courses, they forget everything that they learned because it was a means to an end in the moment of passing a course versus actually digesting what was learned because it's of value to you and you understand why. So when you go researching online to figure out how to grow your business, how to hit your income goals, you have to go there because one, you haven't learned it in school, and definitely not in a practical, useful way. You've just learned a bunch of theory, which does absolutely nothing for you when it comes to practical knowledge, and you're definitely not going to learn it at your 9-to-5 job. When you go online to start researching how to grow your business, you're going to come into contact with thousands of different ways to do it from all across the spectrum, with thousands of different perspectives as to why one way is good and why one way is terrible. And you now have to look at all of this information that you're being bombarded with and overwhelmed by to try and figure out what the heck to do next. And it's hard because we've never been taught growing up to really critically look at what the teacher is telling you, what the person who's trying to impart the knowledge, what they're telling you. We've never been taught to critique that. So when you come into this space, you're giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, and because you're giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, you can't clearly see for yourself which way works best for you. And then that creates confusion and overwhelm, stuckness. Maybe you don't take any action at all. Maybe you take far too much action. You try to take all of the action and try to cover as many bases as possible so that you can make sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's. Because if you have to figure out which one works, so you have to try them all. And none of those methods actually work. Because for one, if you don't do anything, then you don't do anything, and nothing gets accomplished. And for two, if you try to do all the things, you will burn yourself out. What we now have to start doing, especially in this information age where so much information is coming to us, we have to get into the habit of critically looking at what it is that we're being taught. And then when we're critically looking at what it is that someone is saying to us as the right way to go, we then make the decision for ourselves what makes the most sense at this time. When you're trying to build your business, you can feel a lot of pressure to try and hit those income goals, those huge goals, so that you can be able to do things like quit your job, or to be able to prove that you can do it, or whatever your reasons are for wanting to start a business, to be able to help so many people, right? We want to know the right answer. We want to know the right way to do it so that we know we're on the right path and we're not wasting our time and we're actually working towards the end result that we want. But it is impossible to do that and to know that in your current moment because you just haven't experienced it yet. You haven't experienced the journey. You haven't been able to see the pitfalls, see the obstacles, the unexpected twists and turns. It's like a maze, right? And you're trying to think your way through the maze, but in actuality, you don't know what's in that maze. You have to go through it to identify the obstacles, to identify the areas where the path ends and where you have to turn around and double back. You can't think your way through that. You can't think your way through a maze. You have to just walk the maze and then see. Now, some ways to do this is when you're looking at information online, especially with how to build your business, especially even at my information too. Like, I'm not above this. Please do critique what I'm saying and think about it critically. You know, think to yourself, does this make sense to me in this present moment? Don't be afraid to ask additional questions. Don't be afraid to do additional research. If you have questions about anything, about someone's process, about someone's way, how they approach a particular area of business, about their perspective, if you have questions, you should always feel comfortable asking those questions. Because even if someone has all of this knowledge and all of this expertise and they've hit all of these income goals, they are not above your question. They are not above helping you and answering and helping someone to be able to see what it is that they're talking about. In growing up in school and even in just regular life, we come into you might remember where your parents even, they'd ask you to do something, or they'd tell you need to do something, and then you'd ask, well, why? And then you get in trouble for it. And the thought is, well, from them, it's like, well, I don't have to explain myself to you, you're a child. And some of these gurus out here, the thought is, well, I don't have to explain myself to you, I have all this money. No. Your questions deserve to be answered. And if someone refuses to answer your questions, that is a really, really good sign. Or if they avoid answering your questions, if they evade them, give you like word salad instead of actually answering them, then that is a clear red flag. That's a sign that they, one, can't answer your question, or two, they don't respect you enough to answer your question. And if you're going to be working with someone, if they don't respect you enough on that level to explain their reasoning, then that means they're not going to respect you during the process. They're not going to respect your inquisitive nature. They're probably going to attempt to lead you with gaslighting type of tactics and techniques. People should be able to explain their reasoning and where they're coming from. Plain and simple. Because at the baseline of that is being able to help someone understand, and that is service, right? So if you are coming across a ton of different pieces of information and maybe you see the benefits in some, don't be afraid to ask about some of the negative aspects of it. Don't be afraid to ask, these people that you're interacting with, well, what are some unintended consequences? Or who would be someone who's not a great fit for this program or for this style or this strategy or whatever? Don't be afraid to dig into both sides, because everything is 50-50. Like, everything has benefits and everything has cons. Like, there is nothing in this world that is 100% good and 100% bad necessarily, in some regard. So don't be afraid to investigate that, to ask your questions, to make sure that you are clearly making decisions that you can stand behind, that feel good to you, right? And if you find yourself afraid to ask questions or to critique the things that you're seeing, then I do recommend that you explore that a bit and really ask yourself, where does that come from? Is it coming from maybe this good student mentality of, I don't critique the teacher knows best? Because if so, that you have to ask yourself, does that truly benefit you? Does it truly benefit us as a whole? Because the only ways that we have experienced innovation, for instance, in every industry, is because someone decided to take a critical eye at what was currently being done to see if there was a way to do it better, to see if there was a way that it could be done causing less harm, to see if there was a way that it could be done that would benefit the collective. So we have to be able to embrace this critique and this critical feedback and see it as a potential opening for a solution or a way forward that's even better than expected. Right. So I hope you found this helpful. I think I might have went off on a tangent a little bit. This was 100% not scripted. But I don't feel this being talked about enough. Not even just in the online business space, but everywhere in general. There seems to be this idea that we cannot critique our teachers. You can. You 100% can, and you should. And if someone who is trying to impart knowledge onto you, or a strategy onto you, or anything onto you, gets defensive because they have to explain themselves, then that is a really big sign that either they don't know why they're doing what they're doing, which is a big red flag, because if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing and you don't understand its origin, then you're not really thinking for yourself. You're probably just mimicking something that someone else told you to do. And for two, if they feel defensive about explaining themselves, then that's a big sign that, they're not going to be accepting of critique or of feedback, and they're not going to be really present and understanding that they're not better than you. They're not above answering your questions. So, to sum it all up, I would say that even though you are going to be bombarded with thousands of different pieces of information about what you should do to grow your business, it's okay to just start where you are. Instead of looking for the most perfect starting place or the best place to start, because there's no such thing. There's no such thing. It's okay to start where you are, to look at the information that you have, the paths that are in front of you, and to take the next best step forward. But through that process, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to consider both the good and the bad of whatever path you choose. And then as you go through that maze, as you select your path, you will inevitably encounter dead ends. You will inevitably notice that you maybe gone slightly off track, and you will need to course correct. It is all a part of the process, and it is a necessary part of the process. Don't fear hitting the dead end. And I say don't fear as if it's something that you can prevent. You will fear the dead end, and that's okay. Fear the dead end and know that you have a choice to course correct, to find another way through the maze to get to the other side. Because eventually in a maze, you will hit enough dead ends where it becomes perfectly crystal clear to you which paths are not the right path and which paths are the right path for you, and you'll get to the other side until you create a new goal to create a new maze for yourself. It's never ending, but the fear of the dead end is natural and normal. Mistakes will be made, lessons will be learned. And in those moments, you can always choose the path forward. I hope you found this helpful. I feel like I went off on a tangent a bit here. This is 100% not scripted. But it's just something that was on my mind, especially as someone who identified as the good student, as someone who did not like making mistakes, someone who very much claimed the identity of being a perfectionist and claiming it with pride. As someone who used to be those things, I just want to remind you that if you are also someone who experiences these things as well, just know that the fear of the dead end is natural and normal. We don't want fear to go away, right? We need fear. Fear is an important human emotion. It's what literally keeps us alive, right? It keeps us making good decisions that keep us alive, happy, and healthy. We don't want to get rid of the fear. We just want to remember that in instances when the fear comes up and there isn't a bear charging at us, we do have a choice to decide what we want to do with it. And that choice comes with acknowledging where that fear is coming from and what it's trying to protect you from. And that awareness alone is very powerful. So, if you would like to join me in one-on-one coaching so we can help you build a better relationship with that fear, to navigate those dead ends, to be able to build the business that you want to build and do it your way and hit your income goals, then I can help you. Spots for one-on-one coaching open April 1st. So make sure you mark your calendar. In the meantime, you can follow me on all the socials to stay up to date on openings for one-on-one coaching, as well as other tidbits of helpful knowledge and experience that I can share with you as well. And you can also reach out to me to ask questions about anything that I'm talking about. If anything sounds a little confusing, or if you'd like more clarity, or if you'd like to understand my background better on how I've reached the perspective that I have, you are more than welcome. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.